Hello and welcome to Rotted Reviews. As we close out the month of November, I have one last rotted request to tackle, this time coming from dedicated Cenobite Ben Grimm, who wanted me to watch and review the 2022 version of Hellraiser. Ben lists his reasoning for this pick as interested in your thoughts on the franchise itself and how this compares. Eventually, I do plan on inevitably making a full franchise Ultimate Hellraiser video, but I certainly don't mind giving my opinions on this film and the overall Hellraiser world a little bit early. The newest entry in the Hellraiser series that was originally started in 1987 with Hellraiser, written and directed by Clive Barker and based on his own novel of the Hellbound Heart. Prior to this 2022 feature, the series would go on to be 10 films strong, if that word could be applied, with a solid sequel, a third movie that I still defend to this day, a fourth film that took us into space, as all good horror franchises eventually do, and then officially becomes a shadow of its former self. With subsequent sequels all spawned at the altar of name recognition and keeping franchise rights alive, most of these were subpar features completely devoid of anything Hellraiser until executives decided to take a gamble on them for production and or distribution as long as they can shoehorn some Cenobites in there and slap the Hellraiser name on it. One of the consistent elements between all of these movies is the inclusion of the Hell Priest, colloquially known as Pinhead, played with brilliant grace and fortitude by Doug Bradley for the first 8 movies, eventually passing the pins to the less than ideal casting choices of Stephen Smith Collins, then Paul T. Taylor, who actually managed to do a marginally decent job and was a much better fit than Collins. And now, in 2022, thanks to Hulu, we get graced with the 11th film in the series, with the promise of getting back to some gory roots with a fully original story that features Jamie Clayton as the new face of the Hell Priest. Following the character of recovering addict Riley, who lives with her brother, his boyfriend, and another roommate of Nora. Despite the unhealthy risk of codependency and addiction transfer, Riley is spending time with her boyfriend of Trevor, whom she met at her recovery meetings. Conjuring plotline elements of the French extremist film Le Vide, Trevor convinces her to break into an old building looking for loot, whereupon they happen across the fabled Lament configuration puzzle box. The movie then kicks into high gear with each successful solving of the puzzle causing the solver to be sacrificed to the Cenobites, followed by the box changing shape into the next configuration, with the ultimate goal of several characters being the puzzle locking into its final configuration without they themselves becoming sacrificed. So did this film live up to the iconic leather-clad pain and pleasure of the original few movies, or did it fall flat like its more recent predecessors? On a pain level, it was a fine return to form, with some great gore and violent flaying of halfway decent characters. The issue that I took was on the pleasure front. Just to put it all on the table right now, I enjoyed the dickens out of 2022's Hellraiser, and there was a lot here to love. But I'll be going over that in a moment. I'd be lying if I said that it felt like it was a complete film, or at the very least, a complete Hellraiser film. Clive Barker was a master at spinning a yarn rife with BDSM sexual overtones and going to the extreme end and resulting in violent, bloody messes, constantly blurring that line between pain and pleasure.
We have such sights to show you.
The first 2 Hellraiser movies were both masterful at combining those elements to the shock and sometimes confusion of its audience, who may inadvertently find something awakened in themselves. It was honestly one of the core elements of the storyline that separated Hellraiser from its slasher siblings coming out of the same era. The notion of the Cenobites as not necessarily or overtly evil, but instead almost overzealous to a misguided degree about providing their victims with the ultimate level of possible sensations.
Oh, the pain of being rejected from hell. Oh, it's painful, so I love it.
I didn't mean to cause you any pleasure, which causes me pain, which gives me pleasure.
So after watching Hellraiser 2022 and enjoying every ounce of dripping viscera and menacing tones, I still found myself wanting. There was something missing in its pursuits of pleasure, and though I often think that sexual overtones in films can be overdone and a bit non-sequitorial, having it toned down in a Hellraiser movie Just felt like leaving out an essential ingredient in the stew. Putting that aside though, like I said, this was a fine return to form, and one of my favorite driving forces on this roller coaster of a film was Jamie Clayton. I don't know who should get the most accolades, Jamie or the casting director for putting the pins in her hands. Either way, it was a brilliant idea and an even more brilliant execution, as I can safely proclaim that the torch of Pinhead, developed so masterfully by Doug Bradley, has finally been passed successfully. I've been a massive fan of Jamie ever since her heartwarming and heart-wrenching performance in Sense8, and as soon as the casting rumor hit during pre-production, I've been on figurative pins and needles to see just how great of a job she would do, and I was not disappointed. Capturing the sinister grace of Bradley, but with a style all her own, this is one example of a horror franchise that can now continue on in safe hands with a new lead actor behind the primary villain. Let's see if Elm Street can do any better moving forward, if it ever moves forward. I can't really say why, but when I think of the major horror franchises born in the late 70s and early 80s, Hellraiser rarely comes to mind. My best guess is that it's just so different from other teenage slasher films in concept and execution. It's a franchise that truly stands alone and defies comparison with any mindless, rampaging, machete-wielding cinematic cousin. That said, when it does spring to mind, it's always with a sense of excitement for how it started and an equal sense of melancholy for how it wound up. Until now. Though a flawed film that missed out on at least one essential element, I can safely say that for the first time in my adult life, I'm finally excited for the Hellraiser series to continue. And I can't think of a better way to say I recommend this 2022 entry. So thank you, Ben, for asking me to blurt out my thoughts on this series, and thank you for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. What were your thoughts on Hellraiser, both this particular movie as well as the entire series? I would love to hear from you, whether you liked it, you didn't like it. Regardless, please leave comments below. I always enjoy a good conversation and getting your thoughts. Beyond that, please click like and subscribe, and if you want to be notified when new videos come out, go ahead and click that notification bell. It's there for a reason. Use it! Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.